Well, hello, everyone. Welcome back to our Voices in the City series. As we've said, each week, our goal with this series is not to fix each other, but to listen, to better understand different perspectives from people throughout our society so we can stand with them. We do this because we feel Christ stands with the whole world on the cross and calls us to stand with each other. It is my honor and privilege to introduce tonight's special guest with me, which is Will Officer. Is it officer? Deputy?
Deputy.
Thank you. Deputy Will Haverson from the Linn County Sheriff's Department, and works as a law enforcement officer in our community. How are you doing tonight, Will?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
You bet. We really appreciate you taking a chance, rolling the dice. We have a friend of a friend. Your wife works with our longtime member, Jory Shire, Dr. Jory Shire. They're doctors together, and we're so glad to have found you through that connection and you be willing to come speak with us. Now, I should say right off the top that last week I went really long, and our musician, Marita Wolgast, threatened this week if we go long that she's going to play us off with music like those awards shows. I guess we're recorded. There's nothing she could do about it.
Yeah, that's
our
true.
AV guy may pull the plug on us, but we'll try to keep it moving. Can we start by telling us a bit about yourself and your family? Where did you grow up, go to school, that sort of stuff?
Yeah, sure. I'm originally from a small town, well, nice moderate sized town in Illinois, called Pekin. It's near Peoria. It's like central part of Illinois. I grew up there. I'm born and raised there. I lived there basically my whole life. I went to college. I've got a identical twin brother who's 9 minutes younger than me, and I make sure I let him know that every time that he's the younger brother. Like I said, I grew up in Pekin, played football in high school, went to college at Illinois State University over in Bloomington Normal. I started originally in computer science. I love computers. I love technology, and I wanted to do that. And just kind of had a calling kind of halfway through my freshman year to switch majors. And I got in criminal justice, and been in it ever since. Met my wife over there. She went to basically a sister school in Bloomington, Illinois. Met her through my roommate in college, through her roommate, and we fell in love and got married 2008. And I kind of followed her around for a little bit while she was doing her residency. Moved down to Memphis for a couple of years, I believe, and then we moved back up here to be close to her family, and because they all live up in Cedar Rapids. And we started a family. We have 3 children. I've got a 9-year-old daughter, Madeline, a 6-year-old son, Adrian, and then my youngest, a 3-year-old daughter, Julia, and my wife, Susie, who I've, like I said, been married since 2008. That's kind of the short and sweet version of kind of my life.
So how did you get into law enforcement? What drew you into it, or what kind of called you to protect and serve?
It's a funny story because, like I said, I was a computer science major, and I loved doing programming, and it was just a lot of very labor intensive when I was in college. And I was walking back to my fraternity house one day with one of my friends, and he was a criminal justice major, and he looked at me and he said, "Man, you know what?" And I was like, what's going on? He's like, "I don't think you'd be a good computer guy." And I was like, "Well, why is that?" He goes, "I don't know. You just look like a cop." And it was one of those, and I said, I've always, I've always thought, I wanted to try something different. And it was kind of when he told me that, I was like, yeah, I mean, I'm not really into computer science like that. I want to do that. I should have been, I think. And that might have been me being young and in college and wanted to try things. So I switched majors to criminal justice. And honestly, as soon as I did, I felt I was actually I was happier to do it. I enjoyed the classes. It felt right, I guess is the best way to put it. And that was kind of the beginning of my calling for it. I fell in love with law enforcement. I always wanted to be a cop. I graduated, and I actually started with the Federal Bureau of Prisons. So not really a cop, but still in law enforcement. And that was in like 2006. So I was a prison guard basically, but I loved it. Just being in law enforcement, and feeling I could help people that not society had kind of given up on. But in a way, people that are in federal prison, they're in there for a while. So, to talk to people and realize that these aren't the worst of the worst. There are some people that do bad things, but I was just able to talk to them and kind of relate to them like they're humans and treat them like that. And that kind of really made me realize, like, just because they're doing time doesn't mean they're bad people. And that kind of pushed me through, while I was working down there. And like I said, moved up here, and I was lucky enough to get a job as at the VA, and I was city as a cop for a couple of years. And it's still it was all right, but it wasn't what I wanted to do. And then Linn County had an opening, and I applied for that, and I got hired on there. And it seems like it's perfect. I started out in the jail for a few years, and then I finally transferred out of patrol a couple of years ago. And it's kept me well-rounded, all my experiences, which is nice.
It's crazy. It's just a friend that suggested, hey, you look like a cop. You don't have your parents or a dad or uncles or anything that were in the military or law enforcement?
No.
Someone saw that in you and said, listen, man,
yeah,
you belong here, and you saw that as well then.
Yeah, and honestly, and that's what it was. I mean, my grandfather was in World War II, but my dad's was in computer sales, and so I kind of went that route. I never had anybody in my family, at least that I know of, maybe third cousins, twice removed, maybe it was in law enforcement, but nobody immediate. So I never really exposed. I mean, my grandma growing up kind of was really a big part of my life, and she instilled the respect authority, respect the police. But I was born in the 80s, so it was a different time. So totally. That's kind of the way I always grew up. Yes sir, no sir. That's the way I grew up. But yeah, it was just the one friend walking back that said, "Hey, you look like a cop," and it was just one of those not really an epiphany, but kind of a light. You're like, hey, why not? And so, like I said, I tried it, and honestly, it was one of the best decisions I ever made, because it put me on this path, and I feel like this is where I belong. So
I think I may know the answer to this next one, considering your very dramatic story. Okay. Go there, but what's something you'd want to share about being a law enforcement officer that maybe people don't know that you'd like them to be aware of?
Recently, I was involved in a shooting where I was injured, shot 7 times.
You were shot 7 times?
Yep. I was mostly my lower extremities. I had 2 bullets that actually were stopped in my vest, and the other 5 went inside both hips, and then one of them shattered my femur in my left side, and then through my legs, and one across my belly. But for the most part, they were not deadly, but they were very severe at the time. I was still worried about it. But the things I look about, they're really kind of people don't know about law enforcement is a lot of people think people go in this because I hear from people say, oh, people want the authority. It's I really don't. The authority is not the reason I want the job. I honestly, and I know it's really cliche, a lot of people say, at least, but it's being able to help people. And it's being able to help people when they're almost at their worst. Because a lot of people we run into people that are down on their luck, or are going through really bad substance abuse or mental health crisis, and being able to affect them that way, or physical crisis, dealing with, they're broken down the side of the road in the middle of the winter and they're freezing cold. Being able to help somebody even when they're at their lowest, I think it really helps me kind of just feel good about what I do. I know law enforcement people have their own opinions on it, and I am 100% a believer in, hey, you can feel however you want about law enforcement. I'm not going to be mad if people don't like police. I get it. I obviously I'm very biased in it, but that's really, even after being shot, I don't look at that as the worst. The thing people, I think, don't see about law enforcement. I think people sometimes, don't see that. So we really do care a lot. There are bad people in every profession, but a vast majority of people I've dealt with in the local area, we really want to help people.
So can you talk about, I'm so sorry that shooting happened to you.
No, that's all right.
Can you talk about, I can't imagine the pain you must have been in.
Yeah, honestly, and
about it, what happened?
Well, I was working, it was a Sunday night. It was actually Father's Day, and which is kind of the sad part. So, like I said, I have three kids, and before I leave every night, I tell my kids I love them. I sing them a song that I'll love them forever, and it was one of those I was working just a routine day. It was Father's Day, and there was a bad rainstorm actually that day. So it was really slow. And then right around 10 o'clock at night, we got called to guess a burglary alarm, robbery alarm up at Casey's in Coggin. And I was like in Prairieburg, so I was pretty close. So I responded. I was the first guy there. I was met with an individual at the door, and I mean, really, all you can say is like it was over in a flash. You know, it was. I think I put my arm on his arm and told him to stop or to turn around. And at that point, he pulled out his firearm and shot me. And it was like one of those, you know, time slowed down really, because I had a lot of things going through my head. Like, this is happening. This is real. Ow, this is what it feels like to be shot. And then I had the other thought of, oh my gosh, I might die. And then I remember falling down on the ground, and just that overwhelming like sense of like, I guess, weight. I was just like, oh, I'm just gonna close my eyes, you know, this is it, you know, this is it. And then it was the only thing I can tell, I tell people, everyone I've talked to about it, is like, I felt like I wanted to give up, and I would just close my eyes. And then I felt like I was struck, like almost like a lightning bolt, like in my head. And all I heard was no. At least that's what it felt like to me. And it was one of those like, no, I'm not going to give up here. And the only thing I can think even related to was that honestly, God was saying, no, this isn't your time. You know, like, hey, this is bad that happened to you, but this is not your time. You got other things you got to do in your life. So at that point, you know, everything kicked in, maybe the adrenaline kicked in, but I was very like, okay, what do I got to do? What do I got to do? It was not fun. You know, the recovery's been good. I've been doing well, but that day was a rough day. But I mean, I look back on it, you know, I'm glad that it wasn't my time, because now I know, hey, I have more things to give. So that's kind of what I'm trying to work at now. You know, just I want to get back out on patrol and help as many people as I can. You know, especially I've talked to some people, like I'm really looking forward, once I'm fully on the mend, to get back to the police academy in Iowa, over at Camp Dodge, and talk to new recruits too, and explain to them like, hey, this can happen to you, so you need to be ready for it. But also like, this is how we move past it. You know, I'm not gonna let the shooting be me. It's a speed bump in my life.
So you're not back to active duty yet?
No, I'm still, I mean, I'm pretty almost on the mend. I'm doing physical therapy. I'm still considered on light duty. I can't, you know, I'm not out on patrol right now. I'm doing light duty stuff. I work in the jail kind of 8 hours a time. I'm basically just rehabbing. They had to cut through a lot of my muscle when they rebuilt when they put a rod in my leg. So I mean, I'm walking, I'm slowly starting to run now. So, I mean, I'm near the end of my recovery. I go back end of April. I'm hoping maybe May, which is, you know, I wanted it to be sooner. I wanted it to be like last January, but my wife even said, I mean, 6 months for a broken femur is a lot for anybody. So I think I was underestimating my recovery time, but for the most part, I mean, I'm doing well. I'm not going to.
Shooting just happened in last year, 2021.
Yep.
Now you got a rod in
August.
your leg. You're Iron Man, man. You're a super.
I feel like it. Yeah. I mean, I don't even think it's iron, because I went through a metal detector in an airport and it didn't go off. And I was like, maybe they didn't put something in me. But I mean, I've seen the X-rays. I know it's there, but I mean,
you sound like you have a really strong faith. Can you talk about how that informs your work as you protect others?
Yeah, honestly, I grew up in Illinois. I was a Methodist. Went to United Methodist Church in Pekin, and I kind of fell out of practice when I was in college. Just, you know, I let other things take over my life. And then once I got married, my wife is a Catholic. You know, we had our daughter, and we were like, we really want to raise our kids, you know, in the church. And I told her, I was like, you know, I'm Methodist, but I remembered my father never went to church a lot. And that kind of like, you know, why am I going to church if dad's not going? And I thought, well, you know, I mean, as long as you believe, you believe. So I told her, you know, I would convert. So I went through some of the Catholic conversion, and now I'm Catholic. And, you know, it's that way we can raise our family. You know, we can all go to church together. And that way I don't have to worry about my kids saying, well, why do I have to go? Dad's not going, because practice what you preach, kind of. But honestly, really, like, even when I'm dealing with, when I was in the federal prison, and even now when I worked in the jail, when you talk to people, you know, yeah, this person's in here because they're, you know, they're dealing drugs, but it's not my point. Not even honestly, this people that are in for, you know, sex abuse or sex crimes, it's not my job to judge them, really. I look at it like that's for somebody else. I treat them the way I want to be treated. I treat them like they're a person. I'm not bending over backwards for them, but also, they're people. So if you treat them right, you treat them like you want to be treated, really. And everything kind of works its way out. Sometimes you're in the right place at the right time to help people. I was my first week when I was out on patrol, there was a bad fire in an apartment down in Fairfax, and I was same thing. I was probably a minute away from it, and I don't know, like I responded to that call, and I was able to help get, I think, 9 people out of the building, and the 2 of them were young children. And later on, I found out that apartment building was predominantly people that were were on the sex offender registry, and people were like, I can't, I was like, this just goes to show you, like, it doesn't matter. Even if I would have known who they were, I still would have went in there. But like all those people, one person unfortunately didn't make it out, but that was way behind or past my abilities to even save that person at the time, unfortunately. But, like God works in mysterious ways,
Yeah. What I hear you say is that all people are worth saving. And
yes.
That's our view too, from the Lutheran lens, is that
Mm-hmm.
God loves all of us, and we're all sinners. It doesn't matter what we did, that we're all worth saving. And that's the way you look at it. And that's kind of leads me to my second to last question here is when I watched the George Floyd thing and all the unrest going, you said it earlier, there's bad apples in every profession. My heart, I'm sure you did too. Can you, I don't need you to comment on that, but can you just talk about some of the training that you have to kind of destroy some of those biases that you guys may have when you walk into a situation?
We do implicit based buying. It's very difficult to say implicit bias training. Obviously, to me being a white male, like there are things that I don't recognize that that happens to other people, that just it happens because I don't really get a whole lot of people look at me, I look like everybody else, and especially in law enforcement, for the longest time, although you go back to Rodney King and even before then, there was a negative connotation, like you have white police officers and most of them are males, and a lot of it's, people just the preconceived notions, just because somebody looks like something, they doesn't mean that they are. Just because they look like they're hard up for money or they look one way doesn't mean you should automatically assume this person's a bad person. And we do a lot of mental health training now because it's becoming I guess more, not an epidemic really, but it's becoming tough because a lot of people do have severe mental health problems, and with a lot of the places that have been shut down, it increases homelessness and things like that. So like we have to deal with that, and sometimes people's things, I'll put them in jail. Well, jail doesn't really help someone who is going through a crisis, but we get kind of some training. I'm not a mental health counselor, but we do have resources like some places like Foundation 2 that we set people up through. And I think a lot of it too is just me realizing that like, hey, I'm not out here to kick down doors and arrest people. Honestly, I would rather take 2 hours out of my day and help somebody than take them to jail, because then maybe I never have to see them again. Maybe I put that person on the right path, and that would, really be amazing to know that I spent a little bit of extra time, but that extra time, maybe I never have to see this person in a negative law enforcement way again. Maybe I see them on the street, or maybe they're driving their Ferrari down the road because, they hit the jackpot or they found a job. So
God bless you.
I
can imagine how difficult it's been. I sense Marita, the piano player, warming up now to play us off.
Yeah.
I have one more question for you.
Sure.
With all the challenges you've had in the last 2 years and all the extra layers of stress, what brings you joy and in your service to others, and brings you hope for a better future?
Honestly, it's just seeing people smile. Like I tell people, like, through my whole ordeal, like I just keep smiling. Like it's knowing that you affected somebody, even in a small way, but maybe they'll pass that on to somebody else. And, seeing people at their worst, and then later on in months, weeks, whatever later, seeing them doing better, like that really makes me kind of glad that I do this. You know, like I said, you see people at their worst. You normally don't get to see them at their best. Sometimes you're out places and you see somebody and you're like, hey, I haven't seen this person in forever. Oh, they have a job, they have a family now. You know, they're doing good. I may not have helped that, but maybe me not being, you know, arresting them helped them get that way. So I think it's just seeing the joy in other people and knowing that, you know, like maybe I did make a difference. And that's kind of what really keeps me going is, you know what, even if I don't see it, knowing that, hey, I did the best I could for that person. The ball's kind of in their court, but I wasn't negative toward them.
Thank you, Deputy. And firstly,
no problem.
Help me thank Deputy Will Haverson for being our special guest today.
Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate it.